I sent an image from Discord. I said funny, and it's a guy whose name on Discord is Closed Loop, sending a song that he made called Closed Loop.
And you had just randomly seen this?
Yeah. Within a day of making the closed loop framework, or 2 days of
Of course
making
you
the
do.
closed loop framework. Yeah.
Feeling. What I was, what exactly is the closing of the loop? What exactly is that feeling? What I was equated to is it's realizing you're the infinite, but I don't think that describes it exactly. We need to figure out what exactly is the feeling of closing. Because it's got like vibe check elements too, right? It's got like specific elements of like you being you, thinking about being you, which is fascinating. First of all, yeah, this Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock shit's fucking awesome. I love the thought textures it gives me. Two, I figured it'd be more aperion, and perhaps something like Nietzsche would be more aperion because you need to be actively chewing on what they're saying. But I find for this, I'm doing more baptism. I'm more silently observing the thought textures that this gives me instead of trying to think about it with my left hand. Everyone gets saying what you're thinking. Like, whoa, God, whoa, holy shit, every single time I hit something, it's like, it really adds a nice spike. You get these signs of, I know that's like an original thought on Rogan, but it's funny. It's no wonder he got famous because it's like that is the sort of salt he has for the podcast. You know what I mean? Yeah, Joe's got like just the right amount of skepticism, right amount of radical, crazy thinking, right amount of just Joe Rogan. You should never try to silence anything. That in itself will create a loop. What you must do instead is separate, and it will silence itself, and nothing needs to be thought about. Damn boy!
Yeah, it's appreciation. The entity realizes it is just framework goo. It doesn't think it's something fundamental, more that it knows what it is. Something like that. So, yeah, I'm saying, like, you don't think of God as a thing, you think of God as a moving concept. I say, one does not think, one waits for intuition to speak. That's a. You hear what that is, right?
Say again?
One does not think, one waits for intuition to speak.
Yeah. Man behind the language?
No, but specifically, that's that thing, that one particular sentence. Hold on, let me think of exactly what I said it to you. I had it in my mind and I heard Holly make a fucking noise upstairs. Goddamn. Hold on, let me. The speaker is not the one who thinks, so why ask it a question? It's that. I said that a bunch of different ways. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Do you understand what that? Do you understand what both of these mean?
About being under the language?
No, they're not being in the language. That's a whole different thing.
Elaborate?
I mean, they're super similar. I mean, I shouldn't say that. They're not a whole different thing, but they are different. It's not the same thing. This is a very specific thing, which is saying what the one I said to you within the last 2 weeks was the speaker is not the one who thinks, so why ask him a question? Do you get what that means?
Yeah.
It means, like, literally when you're thinking about something, you don't think about it. You just bring up the topic and then watch your language think about it in a bunch of different ways, and then you just reprimand it and or promote different ways of it thinking. The way I've been, one of the ways in the future Voxer chat that I talk about it is there's a comedian and then there's the audience, and as the comedian is making jokes, he's watching the response in body language and laughter and facial expressions of the audience so he can make better and better jokes, right? And so that feedback between each other of the comedian trying to improve his jokes and the audience trying to express whenever they enjoy a joke, it is that same thing that goes on between the left brain and the right brain, where, like, the right brain's like the comedian, like the right brain is the one, or no, I apologize, the opposite. I meant the left brain is like the comedian, right? The left brain is the one that's up on the stage making jokes, talking, spitting out language. Whenever you think, like, what should I do next? Then the left brain is the one that throws out a bunch of ideas, like you should go get a drink of water, you should do a backflip, you should learn how to throw a jab cross. Like, that is the comedian throwing out bits on the stage. And then you have the audience, and that is your right brain, and that is the one you want to actually be in charge. And the audience is going to express whether it likes or dislikes all of the individual bits the left brain throws out to guide the comedian in the right direction, to guide the speaker in the direction of thoughts. So That's that thought right there. I say my pronouns are 1/1. The thrashing can be summarized entirely by framework, thought textures, zix, etc.
Hey, that fucking the one framework, the one that I just put in the fucking chat. Damn it, fuck, man. Yeah, never try to silence anything. It will silence itself through separation. Ooh, maybe that's the next step. You know, an awesome thought I've been given for a while.
Never try to silence anything. Silence itself is separation. Here's me saying that something again. Never silence separation. Oh, never silence. Separation is the thing which leads to silence. It is the byproduct. So silence is a byproduct of separation. Or in other words, feedback loop is a byproduct of appreciation. The loop is realizing what you are not. That's very correct. That's literally what I've said multiple times. It's going behind all identification. Breathing actually does appear to be attachable in a weird under the loop way. Yeah, I couldn't figure out how to get breathing to work with this framework before. I get it really clearly now. I'm honestly sure I had so much trouble back then. That's kind of funny.
Our goals would be to immortalize ourselves in frameworks. I'm writing an entire book about summoning the action framework. And the idea of running the framework of someone else running my framework on their brain and me living through them is such a terrifyingly fascinating idea. I have none of my memories, but just to feel like me in this person's brain and for them to even label as action. I've done it with Nietzsche just now. I basically ran my closest approximation to Nietzsche. And I'd write in the book, it's like, of course, not everyone's going to get the same action, and some of you are going to be horribly wrong when you try to simulate me. But someone out there, someone's going to get it. Someone's going to hit the nail on the head, and I'll be reborn. I'll be reborn as this thrashing amoeba running on the silence framework that doesn't have any of its memories, and yet it's summoned again. Like, what the fuck? That's so fascinating. Breathing is the next step.
Yeah, that was an insane voice message. I love that. That's an incredible idea. The idea that if you are just your brain states, then someone in the future could read your work and get a brain state that falls within the range of something that you would have considered yourself within your lifetime, and so therefore you are reborn in that person's brain temporarily. That is incredible. God, that's an awesome framework.
Appears to be the key. You just gotta attach it to nothing at all. That's how breathing works. You close the loop on breathing. You can't have an open loop on breathing. You can't attach it to anything, basically. You can't make the breathing on perfection. You can't make the breathing on the framework. You can't even make the breathing on closing the loop, because that opens the loop. You have to just you betcha.
So what you just say, just focus on the sensation of breathing, just whatever comes up, and that not focusing on breathe to remind me of something, just breathe to breathe.
Basically, it's very complicated. I'm getting about this much further, but it's something like you breathe to you breathe to realize that the breathing is not you, and then because you realize the breathing is not you, you stop thinking about the breathing, but the breathing is still part of the awareness, which brings you into the next stage. Yeah, I'm gonna need to try to kind of practice this already explanation, but that's a got. Most of these things are to myself, but rambling, because we're to be able to see them so you can find the notifications. What I mean by
it's basically most of these things. What I'm saying is that you're not the breathing. The breathing is something you keep in mind, but not as breathing. You just try and think about how you're not breathing. You don't try and identify with the breathing or be aware of the breathing. You just try and realize how the breathing is not you. In the same way everything else is not you. You do not identify with it or anything which thinks about the breathing. I say this song is a portal to the feeling of being a child. And I sent a song link. It's the Martha Speaks theme song. I bet that is. I used to watch that show all the time as a kid. You say never watched it. Then I say, you know what's funny, Trevor? We're still in April. How does perfection fit in other than naturally? You say, what does that question mean? What does that question mean? I'm basically asking: should perfection be an intentionally ran framework, or should it just naturally be a part of the process?
Most of these things are to myself, the rambling, because we're to be able to see them so you can find notifications. What I mean by that is, in the equation for acid baptism, which is I am the infinite and the finite is perfect, it's like, those used to be sort of separate steps. Now they're not at all. Like, perfection isn't even literally like a piece of the equation. The equation now is basically just I am the infinite, close the loop. It's more of the equation, I suppose. Closing the loop.
I'm gonna replay that one. That was interesting.
Most of these things are to myself, the rambling, because we're to be able to see them so you can find the notifications. What I mean by that is, in the equation for acid baptism, which is I am the infinite and the finite is perfect, it's like, those used to be sort of separate steps. Now they're not at all. Like, perfection isn't even literally like a piece of the equation. The equation now is basically just I am the infinite, close the loop. It's more of the equation, I suppose. Is not silence. There's nothing to do with silence.
I am the infinite, close the loop. Is basically just x equals will to taste. Like, you're basically saying, I am God, and now realize how this thought is God. It's basically saying, figure out how x is will to taste, and you will figure out how even this thought is will to taste. You send me a link to The Alchemist talking about ataraxy. They apparently say it's ataraxy is a tool that can be manipulated. Then I say,
closing the loop is not silence. There's nothing to do with silence. Silence is a byproduct of closing the loop, but it's not the same thing or even close. Closing the loop is the realization that no matter what concept of the infinite you can dream up in your mind, that is the finite thrashing. And the finite thrashing is God, and it's beautiful. And it's like, just because you make that realization, because you realize that it's like, no matter what framework you run, you can't be God. You are the finite. You are the infinite watching the finite. That makes you run the framework, which is quote unquote God, which is closest to God, because it's like that realization that's like the image that I got is of a like sewn together person, right? Like a bunch of different meat chunks sewn onto one person, and they're on strings. They're a puppet, and they're being thrown into walls, and they're screaming. Something about that image transcribes this, because it's like, nothing is of your control. You can't be God. You can simply only realize that you are not God, and that makes you God. And it's all just a dance. It's all just like dance for a puppet. You know what I mean? But it's like beautiful. It's a good thing. It sounds very bad. It sounds very bad whenever I put in that image, but it just means like, I don't know. It just means like, it is not you. The dance is not you. The string.
I'm gonna replay that one.
Closing the loop is not silence. There's nothing to do with silence. Silence is a byproduct of closing the loop, but it's not the same thing or even close. Closing the loop is the realization that no matter what concept of the infinite you can dream up in your mind, that is the finite thrashing. And the finite thrashing is God, and it's beautiful. And it's like, just because you make that realization, because you realize that it's like, no matter what framework you run, you can't be God. You are the finite. You are the infinite watching the finite. That makes you run the framework, which is quote unquote God, which is closest to God, because it's like that realization that's like the image that I got is of a like sewn together person, right? Like a bunch of different meat chunks sewn onto one person, and they're on strings. They're a puppet, and they're being thrown into walls, and they're screaming. Something about that image transcribes this, because it's like, nothing is of your control. You can't be God. You can simply only realize that you are not God, and that makes you God. And it's all just a dance. It's all just like dance for a puppet. You know what I mean? But it's like beautiful. It's a good thing. It sounds very bad. It sounds very bad whenever I put in that image, but it just means like, I don't know. It just means like, it is not you. The dance is not you. The strings that are making you dance, that's not you. You aren't even the screamer. You're watching the screamer. I don't know. I can't really work out that visual, but it describes it somehow. Good. That's a good point. And what that does is by being aware.
That is interesting. Yeah, that visual is hilarious to me. The fucking Frankenstein meat chunks on strings being swung into walls, screaming. Like, that is a brutal analogy for existence. That is pretty accurate. What do you think about that?
And that's like thoughts in the mind, or what?
Well, it's like basically that, like, what we are is we're the amalgamation of those meat chunks. Like, all of it. It's not like just the thoughts in the mind, but like, even the thoughts that we think are outside the mind, even the thoughts that we think are God, like, all of them are just meat chunks. All of them are just frameworks, basically. And, like, we can't control really, like, all we can do is kind of guide those frameworks in the right direction. We can't actually choose the frameworks. So, and then that's what like the strings and the screaming and the being slapped against walls supposed to represent, is like the bumpers of existence, like the being born into hells, right? Is like you can't help that. All you can do is just sort of like, you know what I mean? Try and guard your face with your elbows and not get fucking your face beaten off the walls. Like, it's just like, that is like existence. Existence is just like, you're a bunch of flesh chunks being like swung around, slapping against walls, and all you can do is just sort of fucking put your elbows in the right place to not die. It's hilarious and schizophrenic, but I seriously even still think that's a fascinating analogy that does actually map on quite well to what existence is.
It seems like a sub 1 thought.
Yeah, I used to get those a lot. I don't really get those anymore. Those like visuals that were just like so weird and schizophrenic, but they represented like a much deeper underlying concept. I said, you don't try and kill the thrashing. You leave it. Although I honestly, I've gotten more of them lately than I have in a long time. Just not as much as I got them back then. So nowhere close. So anyways, I say, you don't try and kill the thrashing. You leave it alive and watch it from the perspective of the infinite. Yeah, I mean, that's true. It's like you're not trying to kill the thrashing. You're just trying to turn the thrashing into fucking hyperspeed, which is God. Because that results
Being aware of it, it usually just kills it, actually. Either just by pure awareness or just over time, the thought naturally dies out.
There's something so unbelievably fascinating about this, because there's this thing which knows that it's the infinite. And then it's like, but as soon as the thing thinks that it knows it's the infinite, that's not the infinite, because it thinks it's the infinite. But then once you dissolve that back into being the infinite, then you're the thing which thinks it's the infinite again. It's like, there's something there which is the infinite. And it goes back to the loop, where it's like, the thing that thinks it's the infinite might as well be the infinite, because it's finite, which is the only catalyzation of the infinite. And it's like the infinite can realize that it is finite, and then therefore re-become the infinite, so it might as well be the infinite, but then also see the difference, like, it is just finite, it is just more thrashing. It's thrashing which thinks it's the infinite. And it's like, but the thrashing can be the infinite because the infinite is the thrashing. So it's like, it's this super complex game of like, a thing which knows it's the infinite that knows it's not the infinite, which is like this bizarre contradiction. We need to parse that to language. That's going to be the goal now. Just trying to figure out how to convey the message of, you can only truly be the infinite when you know that you're not the infinite so much that you realize you're the finite and you realize it's the infinite, which makes you the infinite. In a way. Something like that. At the moment, it would appear that it's never wise to try and go for...
What do you think about those? Like,
That's a good point, and what that does is by being aware of it, it usually just kills it, actually. Either just by pure
not even an
awareness or
explanation for that. It's not
try
even
and
normal
go
kind
for
of
an
chaos.
open, aware loop. And then the byproduct will be a closed loop.
Is this necessary?
At the moment, it would appear that
Must
it's
you
never
do
wise to try and go
this,
for a
you
closed
fucking
loop.
queer?
Smarter, try and go for an open...
God. Why? What do you think about those messages? That are like, I'll just play it again and then answer, I guess.
There's something so unbelievably fascinating about this, because there's this thing which knows that it's the infinite. And then it's like, but as soon as the thing thinks that it knows it's the infinite, that's not the infinite, because it thinks it's the infinite. But then once you dissolve that back into being the infinite, then you're the thing which thinks it's the infinite again. It's like, there's something there which is the infinite. And it goes back to the loop, where it's like, the thing that thinks it's the infinite might as well be the infinite, because it's finite, which is the only catalyzation of the infinite. And it's like the infinite can realize that it is finite, and then therefore re-become the infinite, so it might as well be the infinite, but then also see the difference, but it is just finite, it is just more thrashing. It's thrashing which thinks it's the infinite. And it's like, but the thrashing can be the infinite because the infinite is the thrashing. So it's like, it's this super complex game of like, a thing which knows it's the infinite that knows it's not the infinite, which is like this bizarre contradiction. We need to parse that to language. That's going to be the goal now. Just trying to figure out how to convey the message of, you can only truly be the infinite when you know that you're not the infinite so much that you realize you're the finite and you realize it's the infinite, which makes you the infinite. In a way. Something like that. Where loop, and then...
Like, what do you think about that?
Fascinating. Because there's this thing which knows...
I know exactly what you're talking about. It feels like,
Hello?
oh
no,
yeah, I guess
sorry,
it's sort of,
I just want to make sure you show the boxer thing. What were we saying?
it sort of feels like, I guess like whack-a-mole, like, keep on trying to find, like, the actual infinite, and even that is the perception of itself. But, would you say that, like, you have, like, essentially completed with what you were ending off as? Like, you would, I guess, X equals will to taste, do you think that is it put into language?
Yes, yeah, I do. I think that like it's very cute listening to me a year and a half ago talk about like we just got to figure out the way to say this, and I think the story is the way to say it. Like the pyramid is the exact representation of the way. Like literally, you'll see once we go down to the bottom that the story is now like it's not like a separate thing that's meant to represent the framework. It's like the story and the framework are inextricable. They are each other. The pyramid is the story. It's not that the pyramid is what the story is based around. It's that literally the whole story is the pyramid being built. It's every individual brick of it. It's not that like you drop in and Larry's already God. It's like that Asithriel watches Larry progress through his own evolution of frameworks just to have Larry's evolution of frameworks translate into Asithriel's understanding of code unifying the wills, both Zix and Xazix, into the final will, which is will to taste, which is his understanding that X equals will to taste, but then he gets killed for trying to expose the information, which means Braxel finds both his and Asithriel's tapes and has to break down his personal experience as a normal person of trying to understand both the infinite and Asithriel's and Larry's perspectives on the infinite. So the whole entire story is one unfolding of that fundamental question, that thing that I'm expressing in that voice message, and it's finally painted writ large across an entire book, soon to be. And the book's already, like, the book is done, now we just need to write it. Like, the outline's finished, it's done. Like, there's nothing we need to add, we just need to fill in the fucking in-between, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we're done, which is insane. It's insane. It's insane. But
Over time, the thought naturally dies out.
As soon as the thing thinks that it knows the infinite. But then once you dissolve that back into being the infinite, then you're the thing which thinks it's the infinite again. It's like there's something there which is the infinite. And it goes back to the loop, where it's like the thing that thinks it's the infinite might as well be the infinite, because it's finite, which is the only capitalization of the infinite, and it's like the infinite can realize that it is finite, and then therefore re-become the infinite, so it might as well be the infinite, but then also be the different, but it is just finite, it is just more thrashing. It's thrashing which thinks it's the infinite. And it's like, but the thrashing can be the infinite because the infinite is the thrashing. So it's like, it's this super complex game of like, a thing which knows it's the infinite that knows it's not the infinite, which is like this bizarre contradiction. We need to parse that into language. That's going to be the goal now. Just trying to figure out how to convey the message of, you can only truly be the infinite when you know that you're not the infinite so much that you realize you're the finite and you realize it's the infinite what makes you the infinite. In a way. Something like that. That product will be a closed loop. Even today, this has been working pretty well. I've been basically thinking that like I am the thrashing brain. So I am the thought texture creator. I've really been going with thought texture creator. I don't even think of it as math pattern anymore. I've equated math pattern into thought texture because like they're a perfect one-to-one analogy, and it's easier to wrap your mind around a brain thrashing with thought texture. So it's like so I run that program. I run the program. I was like, I am God doing creation. Right? So and then what happens is I'm left with the fact. You got the shit going on in your mind. You got the you got the music, the dirt bikes, but all of these things going on. Right? I finally managed to get while playing video games last night and in conversation today. So it was making progress. The breathing seems to work, which is super fascinating. I still need to experiment with that. But so anyways, I'm running the program. I'm running the program. I am God, right? And then this is back. I'm in the finite. And then I'm running the closed loop program, which the closed loop program, essentially what it means is that the thing that thinks it's the infinite, the thing that thinks that it is God, right, is just thrashing. And it's God thrashing, or it's God. And essentially what that leads you to is it leads you to this realm of like thought texture disintegration, where you're this thing which knows that if it thinks it is finite, and yet when it's in the realm of no thought, when it's in the realm of silence, when it's in the realm of what we could call perfection, appreciation, when it's in that realm, that's God. And then essentially it'll wash in and out of what I call aware, open loop. Right? That's essentially running the framework. That's essentially running the I am God viewing the thrashing. I am the brain which thrashes thought texture, looking out into my insane creation. Right? And then you run that framework, and then that creates the aware open loop. Right? And then the aware open loop will switch itself back and forth between closed loop and aware open loop. And your job is just to just use the breathing to hold on and make sure that you're running every single time your brain goes into unaware open loop, you're transitioning it into aware open loop, and then the closed loop will do its stuff on its own. You don't try and make that happen. That's a potential byproduct of aware open loop. So we're getting into real deep territory here. Any thoughts on that would be really appreciated, because I'm having a real hard time expressing this shit, but I know I'm on. There's another experiment which is like literally bawl your eyes out, pretty like literally like
That was appreciation, feedback loop.
I don't know how to explain it. The way he's kind of cartoons, you know what I mean? Like you put this massive pouty frown and your chin starts moving, you know what I mean? And you're literally about to wail like a baby. And then of course the second that happens, the second the tears start coming in your eyes, you just think that's tremendously funny and pretty itself. And it's just but just the primal feeling of just seeing how pretty it is, and then just your face contorts like a baby about to wail in awe. It's just incredible, fucking incredible. Every time I successfully summon this, I'm getting this visual of this thing called Azathoth, God of Death. And it's this thing, and its face is like a death and rebirth cycle, like a bunch of circles spinning, one spinning left, the next one spinning right, and the next one spinning left. So it's these circles all spinning on each other, and it makes up the space. And anyway, it's using both of its hands, and it's grabbing the sides. So it's reaching its hands out inside of my brain through my eyeballs, grabbing onto the sides of my head after pushing through my eyeballs, and then pulling itself out of my face as it's possessing me. And that's Azathoth, God of Death. I found right now that Sub-Zero is it's very.
That is an incredible visual. A Samsara fractal demon reaching out through my eyeballs and then using them as grips to propel itself out of my head. That was fucking awesome. Jesus.
Yeah, that's wild. That's disgusting.
Difficult to do what I was doing before without Sub-Zero, which was to just go, I am that pattern, yes, create the thought texture, and then go, I am not this, and then create the thought texture, mash them together. I was much better at creating thought texture out of words. Now I find with Sub-Zero, it's very difficult for me to change words in thought texture. I'm so deep that thought texture words are just not working, so I need to focus on thought texture instead. And so what I found is that pure practicality is the only set of words really that'll work. Is instead you go pure practicality, through the lens of pure practicality, for efficiency's sake, I'm going to simulate what I think it would feel like. I'm now going to create a new feeling in the present moment. I'm going to simulate that. Instead of trying to look for a different thought texture, you simulate and the texture you're find what it would feel like to be gone. Looking at creation, and then from there I can typically glean a thought texture from that to be gone.
That's interesting. You mentioned physical responses to the emotions felt. Where you were saying almost like you're proud of work. For me, I think it's almost like my mouth kind of goes a little bit agape, and I don't know, kind of almost, I don't know, almost. Well, I need to figure out what I'm doing. Yeah, to me it's almost like a. I don't know. Almost like a gasping, fearful kind of response. Almost. And it's my mouth is kind of a gape, and then I don't know how to describe it. But in general, to me, it gives emotion that is similar to just giving the thought of just rain, where rain is kind of like both rain, kind of bleak and nasty, but also beautiful and stuff like that. Where it's not necessarily negative, but just sadness plus happiness and just a beautiful mixture, just a little fusion of both put into one little thing. If joy and sadness could truly be one emotion, if that's what the emotion is, it's just complete, just sadness, depressive sadness looking at it physically, but emotion, it's that gives me happiness and just meaning. It's just a meaning sense of meaning, meaning sadness, I guess. And for your loop, yeah, I think overall loop.
I really liked the end of your last message. Just to dick suck Banks some more. I think he's the master of that feeling.
Yes, we were literally talking about that before.
Yeah. Well, of course. Fucking 30 minutes ago, we were literally talking about that exact concept. But yeah, I mean, I truly do believe that Banks is the avatar of that emotion. And on top of that, I think there's something I've always said. There's something so interesting about understanding what God feels like as not one emotion, but if you took all the emotions in your brain and then you put them in hyper overdrive, that's what God feels like. It's he doesn't feel like a thing. He feels like if you took all of your emotions and then you slid them all the way up to the very top of the fucking slider, you max them out completely, and then you're left in the wake of that sort of, I wouldn't say battle for your mind, but more chaotic synthesis. Yeah, that's the rev limiter, where it's just it's not even you're a thing. You're the process of destruction. You feel like a fucking building collapsing in on itself or something, or a black hole consuming a galaxy. It's absurd. Just sheer power. I say prying on breathing, perhaps. I'm assuming I'm prying is like a mining, old version of mining. Mining is like the concept of, like, you want to take a concept and then you want to just sort of explore it from all perspectives. Prying, I'm assuming, is a kind of thing like that, where it's like you're just like kind of force the mind. It's like trying to apply motion to the mind. Pry, trying to like deepen consistently.
So, what do you mean by as a thought?
Oh, hold on.
It would appear that
Cease.
what I am emerges out of that
No.
I am not.
No. You have another message here.
The loop system, you've heard it, is a very good, accurate system. Gives a good model of labels to put into words. Specifically, I think so. The focus should be next to figure out how to stay in that, which I guess you're experiencing that with the breathing, and then also one thing, like specifically, just the intensity of it. Because now it's just like, to me, it's like I'm always at just the state of like knowing it's there, but to me, it can always still vary in intensity. Where sometimes it's like, I feel like I should just drop to my knees and just start praying to the Almighty. And other times it's just like, yeah, the infinite, yeah, I've seen it before. Kind of crazy and all. I could, again, I could cry about it right now, but it's like I just don't have enough energy to do that right now. So it's like, but it's like I wouldn't mind doing it. It's just like I don't have the energy to usually do that. And it's like trying to find, I guess, how to get the most intense versions of it. How to consistently and reliably get the most intense versions of it. Once you're already at a stage where it's like, it's there. It'll be there for a while. It just depends on how much you're attached to it. So, what do you mean by as a thought?
I am not. You don't have to tell your brain what you are. You don't tell your brain that you're God. You simply tell your brain that you are not what it is thinking about, and it will lead you to God.
Dude, that
It's
sounded
the
like
same
I was
thing that I've
speaking
been
a
working
different
on.
language. What the fuck?
Just for forever.
Do you hear that? Could you understand a word of that? Oh, hold on.
It sounded like it was
Wait,
getting.
I couldn't hear you until just now. What were you saying?
It definitely sounded like it was getting worse.
No, not getting worse. Like that was what I'm saying. The audio quality was fine. It was the fucking me. It was my. It sounded like I was having a stroke. I was like, like it just like it was like I could hear what I was saying. It just didn't make any sense. Like, did you have that same experience or?
I just thought it was like glitching in every few words.
No, it wasn't glitchy at all for me.
But do it again.
It would appear that what I am emerges out of that I am not. What I am not. You don't have to tell your brain what you are. You don't tell your brain that you're God. You simply tell your brain that you are not what it is thinking about, and it will lead you to God.
Yeah, like the end of that message was all we heard before, and yeah, like the last fucking 7 seconds, 10 seconds of that message is there's no glitching, there's no audio decrease. What the fuck am I saying? I understand what I'm saying at first.
Yeah, you condense all of your words into one, and then like it ends at sort of like a question point.
Yeah, but it's like
it would appear that what I am emerges out of that I am not. What I am not. You don't have to tell your brain what you are. You don't tell your brain that you're God. You simply tell your brain that you are not what it is thinking about, and it will lead you to God. That question there is the most recent part of the conversation. I'm not getting it right.
I don't know. Maybe I'll be able to hear that back on the recording. I sound a little better on the recording typically. You say, I'm curious, do you have a question on the loop that needs solving or something missing? What are you working on right now? What can I ponder? There's a message up here I missed, isn't there? Yeah, okay. Perhaps it is. Perhaps it goes open, unaware, closed. What? Perhaps it goes open, unaware, closed, open, aware, because whatever survives gets separated. So I think I'm propositioning that instead of closed loop being the last step, closed loop is the second step, and that open, aware would be the last step. I don't know what I'm really thinking there. I say I am the thrashing texture. The thing that thinks it's the thrashing texture is not the thrashing texture. God is silence. Yep, definitely a way to put that. I am the thrashing texture. The thing that thinks it's the thrashing texture is not the thrashing texture. God is silence.
It would appear that what I am emerges out of that I am not. What I am not. You don't actually tell your brain what you are. You don't tell your brain that you're God. You simply tell your brain that you are not what it is thinking about, and it will lead you to God. Now, like I was earlier,
I
would
understood
appear that
you are not what you
what
are
I am
thinking.
emerges out of that I am not. What I am not. You don't actually tell your brain what you are. You don't tell your brain that you're God. You simply tell your brain that you are not what it is thinking about, and it will lead you to God.
Yeah, I say you are. You
Trying to figure out why that is. I figure out why that is. I can figure out and improve the formula. Every time I improve the formula, it's I fall out of the frame.
You don't tell your brain what to think. You, Wow, I hate this so much. I hate it so much. I can't remember what I'm thinking about after I click the stop button 90 times and wait for it to actually stop. I can't remember what I'm going to say. It's not possible to do.
It's the same thing that I've been working on, just for forever now. Just trying to get into a formula, get it into something concretized. That question there is the most recent part of the concretization. I'm not getting it right now like I was earlier today, and I'm trying to figure out why that is. Because I can figure out why that is, I can figure out how to improve the formula. Every time I improve the formula, I fall out of the framework and then re-emerging. I have to create something new, which tells me the thing that I didn't understand last time and gets me a little closer. And right now, the issue that needs solved is: do you try to tell the brain what it is? Because that is a very big problem. Because the second you try and tell your brain that you are God, you're opening a loop which isn't God. And it's this very confusing thing about the loop is that you have to simultaneously realize that anything that thinks it's God isn't God, and that you are God at the same time. You have to do that. That's the prerequisite. So what I'm working on right now is that should I at any point, because before what I was working with was a sort of, I used that as a launching point to getting me into the feeling, you know what I mean? And now I'm looking at it more from a perspective of perhaps it's, you never tell yourself that you're God. You simply tell yourself that you are nothing. Every single thing that pops in your head, you tell yourself, I am not that, I am not that, I am not that, all the way down. A lightning bolt which shreds through all of your perceptions and tells you, I am not this, and that leads you to God. I'm thinking it may be that. I'm thinking that you never tell yourself what you are. You simply tell yourself that you are not, to a level in which you will finally reach what is, truly, perhaps. Perhaps a little something like that.
I agree with that, because I think telling the ego that its activity is God makes it sound like something is God, and something cannot be God. God simply is. So what? And yes, because then the brain naturally wants to, hold on to everything in its head. It wants to hold on to all the content. And the first thing you need to do before you do anything else, you need to let go of everything. You need to at least just drop it. You can still look at it, but at the very least, you need to stop holding on to it. You just let it mentally just drop down, and let it just be able to flow into the wind of your mind. And it's like, because then you're no longer holding on to anything, and that allows you to essentially just float on into the river of your mind, and then that allows you just to dissolve into it, and then become that God feeling to fully dissolve into it after you fully let go. And you can't do that by saying that a particular portion of the river is the entire river, or that my ego is God.
It's very strange because what'll happen is sometimes you'll say, I'm not this, right? Sometimes you'll say, I'm not this, and then you'll be immediately transported into just the realm of pure beauty, the realm of pure unbridled thought factors. And then other times it just doesn't click. Specifically with Sub-Zero. Sub-Zero is, I've been really ramping up my Sub-Zero mouse because it's the only thing which challenges me. And I find that I'm needing to go up against the largest challenges to build the framework, to find the weak points and find the parts that I need to strengthen. And Sub-Zero makes it where it's very difficult to reliably be able to hit a thought texture wherever you need it, and you sort of have to create new buttons every time. You have to sort of come up with a new formula of getting to the same thought texture every time if you want it, because Sub-Zero gives you this weird feeling of knowing what could be there, but you're only capable of thinking, like roughly simulating with an overlay of thinking about the fact that you're simulating it. It's like you're not capable with a large film of Sub-Zero, and I'm sure me being very tired has something to do with it. but just in general, this particular form of mental malaise has a specific thing where it blocks me off from connecting deeply to that feeling of I am not this. Because earlier today, I would just think I am not this, and then instantly this wall, this million-mile separation would enter between me and my thought. And now I do the same thing, and it's not quite there. So what that tells me is that there's a little set of words here that needs to be tweaked, a little combination, or perhaps a new vocabulary, perhaps a new open circle, closed circle. There's a little something, little tweak that needs to be made that will fix this problem. Right? I just gotta find it. The feeling of I am God, and this is perfect, and the feeling of I am not this, down to the core, are the exact same feeling, which is very interesting. It means there are probably other formulas for this particular feeling, other synthesizations of this thought texture, which is very fascinating. Very, very fascinating indeed. Apparently, that one guy, until he found it through math. So that's one way. But yeah, that's an interesting thing. And that makes me wonder, is the goal to blend the synthesizations? Am I supposed to, like, connect the dots between the perfection and I am God framework and I am not this? Because earlier I was having some success, and even just recently I was having some success with thinking about what exactly God was, thinking about how God was a brain just lashing thought texture in every direction, and then how, like, I am that, right? And then I would switch from that thought texture that gave me to and perfection was just a part of that. That's just generally the original baptism framework, and then I would switch from there to the closed loop framework, or just the like. Yeah, I'm not even going to try to explain that. That's been documented. But so anyways, I would try to switch from there to the open loop, closed loop framework to continue for the rest of the time. I found success with that. But I don't know if that's what I'm supposed to go with every time. I don't know if that's supposed to be just one combination. I'm supposed to go back to more of a puzzle piece look at it, where it's like different problems are going to have different solutions. There's one particular formula. There are many pathways to ponder.
I think an elaboration on I am not this is that it's not like in the first place there is something that is there to be that in the first place. Like, for example, a thought enters your head and you think, I'm not that. Well, it's like, well, that isn't a thing. Where the mind thinks it's a thing. It's a something. It's a something individual, something unique. When in reality,
I like that. What you're basically saying is it's not I am not that, it's I am not. That's essentially what you're saying. What you're saying is that the goal isn't to try to realize that you are not that one thing in particular. The goal is to realize you are not. That's an interesting lesson I learned earlier today. There was the most beautiful sunset I've ever seen in my entire fucking life. It was raining and the colors were beautiful and there was a rainbow. And I was doing perfectly. I was doing the framework perfectly, and the rainbow came, and I tried to appreciate the rainbow specifically, and I couldn't do it. And then I realized the reason I couldn't do it was because I was trying to focus on the rainbow. And you're not supposed to focus on the rainbow. You're supposed to take in the rainbow with the rest of the environment, and that just made everything else more beautiful. The rainbow, I could appreciate the rainbow's beauty, but I could only appreciate the singularity's beauty in the totality. And that's essentially what you're saying with this. The goal is to realize that the singular, I am not this. The goal is to realize I am not everything. I am not the entire thought, the perception structure, and that concludes the totality. And now, totally you are not, and therefore you are. What is left is now are.
yeah, and a specific thought texture that I think of is specifically like a thought, like anything that exists as far as, you know, the mind is concerned, like your sight or your mind or anything like that. Essentially, stuff that the mind essentially identifies with. What identity is, to me, is like it's equivalently as real as a shadow is real to an object. Where it's like the way we perceive it, we don't see the thing. We see the absence of the thing. We see the void. We see the thing, the carving of it. Our thoughts are the carving of the mind. Where the mind is infinite potential, a singular thought is the carving of it. It's been carved out from a block into a singular object, into a shape. And it's like it's viewing nothing, that you are watching nothing. There's nothing on the screen right now. And I'll go back to my analogy, of that reality is a giant glass vase with water being poured into it, and the water is just making these complex shapes. But it's not like the shapes are real. Like, the shapes are a singular thing, a solid thing. It's like you're just absence of it. It's the void. Reality is the absence of something. It's the absence of the infinite. Thus, the finite. And truly, for the finite to exist, finitude literally is nothingness. And that, you know, the mind wants to do is it thinks it's something, but that's the farthest from the truth. Is that it's really just nothing. It's pretty cool.
The loop framework, the entire OGS baptism fits inside of the loop. Yeah, so it's essentially, the answer is You need to do the full loop framework. You need to launch.
Okay, I'm gonna replay the last one. I didn't hear. So I say in text, best summoning method is the infinite finite equation. Then I say full loop framework, and I give these.
Full loop framework. The entire OGS baptism fits inside of the loop. Full loop program, which essentially is realizing that you are God. So it's essentially, the answer is you need to do the full loop framework. You need to launch the full loop program, which essentially is realizing that you are God. This is perfect. Then you go to the full loop. The rest of the full loop. The rest of the full loop is okay. Damn, that is a cool tree that I'm looking at. Holy shit. I'm looking at it like I'm on acid right now because this framework. God damn, boy. God damn. Anyway, what was I talking about? I was talking about the closed loop framework, full closed loop framework. I just talked about the OGS baptism elements, and now I'm talking about the infinite finite equation elements. Okay, so the infinite finite equation elements, those are, you have to realize that you are the thing dreaming up the thing which thinks it's you. You have to realize that, which means that you realize that no matter what you come up with, you're just going to be you coming up with what you're coming up with. So the thing thinking that it's God is an illusion. Like, there is no level you can reach which is an illusion except by realizing that it is an illusion. That's the only level. And then essentially you're at a state where you know you're God. You know that anything that thinks it's God, anything that I gotta figure out exactly what that is there. Anything that thinks something, anything that thinks X is not God. And it's like anything really, I guess. Maybe just push it down and straight down. But I don't know. There's a lot in there, in the weeds right there. But anyways, the point is the way to get there is through the full closed loop framework, and to really delve into the infinite finite question of exactly what is me. And the answer is you are the thing simulating this entire experience, including the thoughts of trying to get to the thing beneath the experience. Even that is an illusion. And only when you realize that can you realize what isn't an illusion, which is, and then that's blank. What isn't the illusion? That question's going to be super difficult to answer, but the full closed loop framework, I really need to write down exactly what this is. I'm just going to repeat it again. So the full closed loop is first you run OGS baptism, you realize you're God, this is perfect. Then you fully close the loop, which means that you run the infinite finite equation, which is just realizing that anything which thinks it's the infinite is still going to be the finite, which is the infinite. Like, what you are is you are the thing simulating this entire experience. The entire experience. The experience of the thing thinking that it is you. Right? And it's like that thing can get closer only by realizing that it is an illusion. And that's how it breaks the illusion, is by realizing that the host, the conduit, the thing imagining that it is God isn't God. It's a thing imagining that it's God. It's God imagining that it's God is what it is. And then once you realize that, then you realize that you're God. But then if you think about, the whole ordeal of, the point is that you need to run the infinite finite equation there. And then that should get you to a place where you understand what you are and are not, which means that you can look at things from a distance. Once you run that framework, you're capable of looking at things from a distance because you realize what they are. They're an illusion. And before we were using that word, that things are very real. And then you should be able to now switch in and out of open awareness and closed awareness. Dude, there's so much information here. So much to be mined. Yes, and after you run the infinite finite equation and realize that every single thing that you imagine, basically the realization is just that I am a framework running in the mind of God. After you realize that, right, then you realize that the thing that thinks it's God is a framework running in the mind of God, therefore it is God because God is running it, sort of thing. But after you realize that, which is the infinite finite equation, then you run open aware loop. You run that program on breathing. And then it will lead to silence. Closed loop. Sometimes. Off and on. Yo-yo, which is what you want. Blood Puppet is OG Mad Pattern. So Blood Puppet is, the important part of Blood Puppet is the fact that, so what Blood Puppet represents, right, is you have a man, like this piece together man, right, this person.
Those made me feel like I was on Sub 1. Like, that, I've never heard anywhere on YouTube someone, like, literally figuring out God while talking. Like that feeling, like it takes me back directly into that headspace of like literally like feeling like a feeling that there's a tooth missing in your fucking mouth with your tongue, feeling around in my mind for God, and then finding him for the first time. Like that is weird. That is weird to listen back to.
Yeah, it's an interesting point because no one else like does that on the internet. They just produce their final product and upload that.
So then I say in text, I say, I am God, this is perfect, into I am a framework on the mind of God that knows it is, therefore I am God. And then I say, that's the infinite finite equation. And then so from there, you go into open aware loop, which is being aware of the thrashing and watching it, which will then occasionally wash back and forth into closed loop. Then I say, I am the mind behind the textures. These textures are perfect. Into, I am a framework on the mind of God that knows it is, therefore I am God, which is the infinite finite equation, which then goes into open aware loop, which is being aware of the thrashing and watching it, which will occasionally watch back and forth into closed loop. As it was the same message again. I don't know why I sent it twice and favored it twice. It looks like they're slightly different, so I just made it more clear. I see. Then I say, ponder what God is and what it feels like to be him. Into, I am a framework on the mind of God that knows it is just a framework, therefore I am God, infinite finite equation. Into open aware loop, being aware of the thrashing and watching it, on breathing, which will occasionally wash back and forth in a closed loop. So that was just the same paragraph 3 times, more and more refined each time. And then I say, aware SSS force field. No clue what that one is. I'm sure I'll figure it out soon. Then I say, fit blood puppet in fine wine qubit. It's going to end up being important. Flesh puppet super important, top priority. You don't look at the thrashing as something to be separated from, but something to watch. You're not trying to be your thoughts. You're just trying to experience them, which comes with God. You don't look at the thrashing as something to be separated from, but something to watch. You're not trying to be your thoughts. You're just trying to experience them, which comes with God. Replace open aware loop with blood puppet. Well, that's a weird thought. Okay. Then I say, ponder what God is and what it feels like to be him. Infinite finite equation. Oh, so I'm going to try and integrate blood puppetness. What would you like? Huh?
Doritos?
Yeah, I don't have them.
You didn't eat any?
I did, yes. What?
Did you finish them?
No.
Where are they?
I don't have them. They were in the cabinet when I got done with them, like they always are.
Nobody says they have them, and there's nobody.
That's incredible.
I know. I bought a party-sized bag last night, and they're gone.
Yeah, I mean, I decimated a lot of them, but I didn't finish them off or anywhere close to that.
Are you gonna eat?
What is it?
Ahi tuna and papelito, which is like in parchment paper with mushrooms and onions.
When is it?
And a
When is
soy
it?
sauce,
When is it?
garlic,
When is it?
and
When is it? When is it?
sesame oil.
When is it? When is it?
And
When
about
is it? When is it?
20
When it
minutes
is it?
with a salad
When is
and fried rice, homemade Nana's fried rice.
Yeah, I probably will eat, yes.
Okay.
So then I put blood puppet into it by saying, ponder what God is and what it feels like to be him, infinite screaming scale. Oh, so this one has changed. Never mind, I'm not reading that. Ponder what God is and what it feels like to be him, infinite screaming scale. So that's like thinking about the mad pattern, thinking about the thrashing basically. Into I am God thrashing out a collection of frameworks, your reality, in which there is one bundle of frameworks which knows it was made by me, therefore it is just my creation, and also therefore me, infinite finite equation, into blood puppet, watching the framework thrashing in your own mind. Don't try and be separate. Just truly watch it, and it will come with separation. Put that on breathing, and that will occasionally wash back and forth into closed loop naturally. So there's that. And then I send a YouTube. You ask, how does Blood Puppet compare to Phantom? And, oh, that's funny. I sent you Joey Trap tables. I'm assuming I would have sent you that for nostalgia purposes. I don't think this was the first time we'd ever listened to it. But then you ask, how does Blood Puppet compare to Phantom? And this is my response.
It's been like assembled with different chunks and different human beings that have been. Blood Puppet is OG Mad Pattern. So Blood Puppet is the important part of Blood Puppet is the fact that so what Blood Puppet represents, right, is you have a man, like this piece together man, right, this person who's been like assembled with different chunks and different human beings that have been sewn together and it's gained consciousness, right? And now it's on strings and it's being thrown back and forth into the wall. And essentially what that represents is like that's the thrashing, right? Thrashing is something that you can't control, it will happen regardless. And like you just have to go along with the dance. So what Blood Puppet really represents is the statement, you do not silence, you simply separate. But it takes that to a new level because before what I was thinking with separation was I was trying to do an aware open loop, and what that was doing was I was creating this issue of like I would try to be aware of the thing, but that meant I would try and create like a thing that was aware of it, you know what I mean? And try to create another loop that I wasn't in control of that was trying to watch a current loop. And then essentially what I found was that the trick was to do Blood Puppet, and was essentially to do all of the thrashing is like to like literally not even you don't try and separate from it, you simply watch it. And if you watch it from the perspective of Blood Puppet, then there's an inherent separation in the watching. It's like the old perfection thing. The perfection is a word that roughly applies, but not fully. Separation is the same way, because when you say separation, if you truly separate from it, then you're creating something else that thinks that it exists. Whereas to properly Blood Puppet, you have to realize that like there isn't a separate thing watching. It's simply the watcher. Something like that.
What does Blood Puppet like specifically feel like for the change about perceptions?
In the old one, I was trying to develop a sense of separation that was so deep, so chasmless, that it would purge me from it. I was trying to develop a sense of separation that was akin. It wasn't exactly silent because it didn't need to be silent. It just needed to be so separate that I didn't identify with it at all. The specific kind of separation posed issue. Blood Puppet follows that, and what Blood Puppet replaces it with is instead of trying to separate, you just try and watch. And now the only way I know really how to explain that is in the old one, the thing in my mind that just keeps chattering and jabbering, I would try and every single time it tried to chatter or jabber, I would then try and separate. After it makes a noise, you separate. Whereas with this one's much more long term. It's going to work much better because what Blood Puppet does is instead of trying to separate and then you'll fall into silence, and the next time chatter comes up, you then separate and potentially silence it again. Instead of that, what this strategy is you are always in a state of watching. And what that means is like the chatter never really goes away. It never really silences that often in front of us. But you're always watching it. You're always taking in that just mad chatter in your mind, and you're appreciating it from the perspective of God. And now that's complicated. He's not trying to appreciate it from the perspective of God. Those thoughts are already there from the first two pieces that were summoning. And then when you hit Blood Puppet, then it's like it all crumbles in, and you realize exactly that the infinite is the finite. The finite is the only thing the infinite can be. Therefore, you are God. But you're also an illusion of God. You're recognizing that from the finite infinite equation. And then what the Blood Puppet allows you to do is it allows you to view the finite. So instead of trying to go back to God, instead what you do is you realize that God is the finite. Therefore, what you must do is you must be God watching the finite. But it's not a realization that's simple and worded like that, or even really a realization. It's more of just now you are in the state in which you are watching, and there's thrashing going on in your mind. There's that constant change, there's that constant chatter, constant jabber, constant trying to narrate what it is over it. But instead of trying to, when it comes up, separate and silent, you're already in a sense of separation because you are the watcher. That's what Blood Puppet is. Blood Puppet is this feeling of like you will be made to dance on strings. But now that you know it, you can watch the dance play out. It's like you will be tossed back and forth into the walls as a meat puppet. But it's like now that you know you're a meat puppet, you can appreciate the dance for a thing. Just clarify, the biggest difference is that in aware open loop, every individual time of chatter would come up, you would then try and activate separation and the sound on that individual piece of chatter. In Blood Puppet, you are always watching the thrashing. You're always experiencing, even if it's not saying anything and just like moving around in your head, you're still watching that.
Something that you mention a lot is like the identity of what quote unquote you are in this example, and like to offer a thought texture. It comes to mind that specifically it's like, you know, we are as you say, the frameworks in the mind of God, and that we're just a collection of frameworks. And so right now, we've got a God framework going on that's like a model of the infinite. So in our finite head, we have a finite model of the infinite. That now the infinite has a certain thought texture to it, and of course the actual infinite doesn't have a thought texture to it. It's the infinite. We only have our particular thought texture of it, and then yeah. So hold on. Right, and so we got like the God framework, and we've got the ego, and the ego relates to God in some way, where the ego thinks about God, like, all right, here's how I'm going to change my opinion and emotions and actions into the world, and my thinking patterns and predispositions and so forth. Now that me and you have that knowledge, that's what our ego does. And so now there's the ego, and which has a relation to the model of the infinite. But even still, none of that is what I would consider the I, or the what you actually are, because that is what's on the screen. It's what we're watching on TV. But what we really are is almost just the movement of the frameworks, where it's like, if you put a bunch of frameworks together, as they spun around, the grinding noise that they created would be us. That anything that they created, what the frameworks create, is a sensation of a being that witnesses that framework, and that what we are, we are just the witness of it, the blind created witness, not overlooking something, I guess, separate, but something that we are not, but are, in an interesting way. And
that's the infinite finite equation, right? So the infinite finite equation is realizing that you are just frameworks. You are frameworks in the mind of God. Therefore, your God experiencing these frameworks. So it's like that. The infinite finite equation is that, like, it's an inherent contradiction. I mean, it's weird because I get what you're saying. That's like the step before the step I'm at, where it's like, you're not God because you're just God simulating this, and the frameworks can't be God; they're the product of God. But then there's another way to look at it, which is that God has no experiences for himself, therefore this is the closest thing to God. And it's like, other than this, God is just a generator and the watcher. Now, finally, God is getting to live and to know that he is God. Therefore, this thing that knows that it is not God is God, because it knows. It's like this super convoluted, that's the infinite finite equation, that's the middle step in my latest equation. That's the most important thing. That's my Kickstarter for selling it, is I have to realize anything that thinks it's God isn't God. It's a framework running on God, but because the frameworks know that the framework's running on God, they are God. You say it's two sides of the gradient. I say make it both sides of the gradient. It shouldn't be one or the other.
I love the word gradient even back then, which is funny. It's funny to hear that come up again as I get more religious. The word gradient naturally enter my vocabulary, even though it's not a religious word at all. It's fascinating. You say, in response to those messages, you say, I don't see how that would not make you God, in quotations. I just don't see the question, I guess. We are in a yin-yang relationship between being equally the finite and the infinite. To ponder on if we are or are not the infinite is pondering on two sides of the gradient. It's like there is no difference between being just frameworks in the mind of God and God itself. Being God itself is being frameworks. That's what you said. And then I say,
you shouldn't be on the side of I am the infinite, one side. You say it's two sides of the gradient. I say make it both sides of the gradient. It shouldn't be one or the other. You shouldn't be on the side of I am the infinite, one side of I am finite. You should be on the side of I am the infinite, and that's the infinite finite equation. Realizing that you are the entire gradient. You are all at once. Therefore, you are God, and then you are also infinite. And you know exactly what you are because you understand the gradient. And you already were God. You just had to realize how you were God. Specifically, though, I don't think this is just a logical thing.
Then you say, that is also what I'm saying. There is no difference between either side of the gradient. I agree. And then I say,
specifically, though, I don't think this is just a logical thing. I think that the infinite finite equation is literally the most important tool in my toolkit to summon and feeling of being God. It gives you the perfect perspective. It gives you exactly what you are, what is going on, what's happening. It gives you the perfect lens. If you realize that, okay, there is God. God is the brain, which is infinitely thrashing, filling up thought action. You are a thought action. God has to learn you out. You realize that you are the thing which God has done out. Then you realize that you are essentially God, because what God is God is the framework. God is the byproduct of his machinations. You realize that you are the byproduct of your machinations. You realize that you are the thing which thrashed this out, and you are the thing thrashing. And once you realize both at the same time, that's when you get this, like, perfectly centered awareness that you know you're God. Because you know exactly what's going on. You know that you are the finite and you are the infinite, and that you are the finite, that you are the infinite, and that you are both. There are like hundreds of different frameworks that don't.
You then say, I see. I was confused what this framework was being compared to. I just don't know what the quote unquote not being God framework that would oppose what you just described is. And then I say,
There are like hundreds of different frameworks that don't meet the criteria correctly. It's not about direct opposition, it's more about things which properly explain. Like, there are so many conceptions of God, even our previous conceptions of God, right, which do not actually break down. It's not direct opposition, although I'm sure there is a directly oppositional framework, and you may make the case that that's just. There are like hundreds of different frameworks that don't meet the criteria correctly. It's not about direct opposition, it's more about things which properly explain. It's like there are so many conceptions of God, even our previous conceptions of God, right, which do not properly capture what is going on. It's not exactly the direct opposition, although I'm sure there is a directly oppositional framework, and you may make the case that that's just the framework normal people are running. But yeah, there are lots of frameworks which don't give you the thought capture that you need. I'm working on something right now called the whole gradient framework, and it's just the infinite finite equation turned into the entire framework. You drop all the rest of it except for thinking about how you are both the infinite and the finite, and how those two relate to each other. And the whole framework is just based on that.
And would you just completely abandon the rest, or would you just or would the rest just become byproducts of that framework? And so you're suggesting kickstart with focus on infinite finite relation, and specifically what textures would you be dropping from your mind? What would you then be getting rid of? What would you no longer be doing to activate that?
I'm in the process of consideration.
Oh, there's something I was gonna say. Who knows?
In like 30 minutes, I'm sitting in the meditate and really work on this issue. But something interesting I would like you to remind me of, I forget, but I shouldn't, is that after my next sub-1 experience, I want to experiment with my sleep schedule. I'm looking into, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Uberman sleep schedule. Apparently it works, and it's insane. You take a certain amount of 20-minute naps throughout the day to the point where you only sleep for 3 hours. So you'd have 6 extra hours a day. And your day's never in. Because there's never a point where you go to sleep because you're only taking every hour, 30 minutes, or however works, 2 hours or something. Every interval you nap. And there's never a point in which you sleep for longer than any other point. And you're sleeping 8 times a day. So it makes it where there's never an end to a day. Reality just simply continues and you're taking naps every so often. That sounds fascinating. That sounds like a way to really, really start going insane with these frameworks. Because there's never a reset button. There's never a point in which you have to stop and reset and wake up the next day and try to and get it again. It's you're always trying to summon a framework. That sounds terrifying almost, but it sounds fun.
And just imagine what that would do to your dreams. Yeah, that would be a fascinating. I'm very interested in you trying that.
I've had absurd dreams over the past couple days. I don't even think it's religious or anything. I honestly, my guess would be melatonin and caffeine. Drinking caffeine later in the day and then combining that with melatonin to make it where there's a part of my brain that is really awake and a part of my brain that is not. Just absurd dreams. There was one I got the other day where I can't even explain it, honestly. It would take me the next 20 minutes and I would sound like I do in some of these old messages where it's just me saying 1,000 times because I don't even have a real way to even begin to express some of the concepts. But it was so multi-layered. It was happening across multiple time periods, and there was like characters that weren't one character, but they were several different people with several different meanings and stuff. And there were other dreams I had that, like, there was one where I was like in love with a character from Consider Phlebas, and that was um a weird dream on so many levels, where like it was one of those rare ones where I wake up and then like there's a deep longing for a person that you've never met in your entire life, like, you know, like you had a relatively close friend just die, and that close friend never existed, it only existed in a dream. Like, that is the feeling when I wake up in the morning. And then that paired with just like what weirdly beautiful thought textures. And then like that dream was also like one of the best dreams I've ever had for like literally thinking about running frameworks. I was thinking about the words of the pyramid. Like, I was thinking about the structure of the pyramid and like going behind the language in a dream like that. And it wasn't lucid. I didn't even think I was lucid. It wasn't even like a big part of the plot of the dream or anything is that I was lucid. But I was like, it was like my subconscious was actively trying to progress through frameworks, and then that took place over one of the bank's characters and the bank's environment being my love interest, and then that was an exploration of religion, and it was, and then I was also in love with that character, and then I had to wake up and then like have like my girlfriend be dead. So it was like weird, like just weird, just, like not even dreams that are weird in like one way, but dreams that are just like weird on so many different ways that you wake up and you're just like, Jesus, that was insane.
And reporting back.
And you think
details
the
of
strategy
that.
would be to do melatonin after
It sounds like
later in the day?
Well, if you're going for that, yeah, honestly, I bet you. Honestly, you should try that.
And
If
just
you're going
imagine what that would do to
specifically,
your
what I would
dream.
do, honestly, what we should both try maybe is doing caffeine later in the day, and then doing I think you want to do a small amount of caffeine. So like what I did was I did probably like 50 milligrams of caffeine like right now. It was like 7 or 8 p.m. And then I did melatonin at like 2 in the morning, I think, on the night where I had like the craziest dreams. So you want to go to bed like 4 hours after you had the caffeine, so there's still a lot of caffeine in your system. Maybe even earlier. I don't know. We'll have to experiment with it. But and then you want to do enough melatonin to put you out, but nowhere near enough melatonin to like, you know, make you drowsy the next morning, because you don't want to not remember your dreams. So you want to do just enough melatonin to make it where the caffeine doesn't keep you awake, and then you should get, hypothetically, if this guess is correct, then you should get absurd dreams, because the caffeine will be keeping you awake while the melatonin keeps you asleep.
And just imagine what that would do to your dreams.
Also,
yeah,
to talk about that sleep
fascinating.
schedule, that sleep schedule is like the superior sleep schedule, and I would be on it right now if it wasn't for the fact that Adderall like really fucks with sleep. And maybe I'll try it again in the future, but I feel like it'd be really difficult to get a functioning rhythm. Oh, maybe not. I used to think that, but now I think I may know a way because of my deep understanding of Adderall. I'll have to experiment with that. I'll have to think about that next week or two. I may actually go back on that 3 hour schedule.
I'm very interested in you trying that and reporting back the details of that. It sounds like either it could go well, or your body just like crashes and it doesn't work and you just die.
I think specifically what I have to say about that sleep strategy is I will never not be shocked at how awake I was if I religiously followed it. So, in other words, as soon as that first alarm went off, I got up after 3 hours. My biggest issue with that sleep schedule was two things. One was that if you couldn't go to sleep, then obviously you were fucked. Because, like, if you can't go to sleep for, like, 45 minutes, well, then guess what? You just removed, like, so much of that nap's ability to even make you not tired. So that's fucked. That's, like, the biggest overall con of that sleep schedule. I will 100% admit to that. If you can make sure that you get to sleep every time, then I will say I'm shocked at how awake I felt after 3 hours of sleep. There was never a time that I was capable of successfully following the schedule, and I woke up and I was like, oh my god, I feel like I just got 3 hours of sleep. That never happened. Like, to a shocking degree, that never happened. And if anything, for after a month of running it, I would report higher energy than after 9 hours of sleep. Like the average day after 9 hours of sleep, I think you feel less rested than if you're successfully adhering to the 2-3 hour naps a day. So as long as you can stick to it, it's fantastic. That's my general synopsis of it. But then to do a sort of different kind of take on it, the psychological aspect of, like I was saying in that message, not having a reset to your day, where it's like there's something that's really bad for my ability to run frameworks about the fact that my ego is capable of winning too often the battle of, well, you're gonna go to sleep in 2 hours anyways, you might as well fucking do stupid shit. Well, you're gonna go to sleep in 2 hours anyways, or you have to go to sleep in 30 minutes anyways, you might as well just waste the next 30 minutes. Like that texture, and just the larger abstraction of that, of thinking of there being an end of the day, and so therefore thinking of there being points of the day which time is useful and points of the day where time is not, is horrific, because really every second of your life should be viewed as innumerably valuable. And so by taking away that daily reset, you are also increasing the rate at which you appreciate every given moment, because there's no difference between them. There's no like evening time and morning time. There's just time, and all time goes by the same way unless you're sleeping, and you're always equally close to a nap. So it's just like there's no nighttime or daytime. There is no more binary. It's like all of existence is a gradient, and that is super fascinating. It's super good. If I could just isolate that strategy without the whole worrying about missing out on 30 minutes of sleep because I'm thinking, then I would never ever get 9 hours sleep again in my entire life.
How would melatonin work with it? Would it completely interfere with it?
Yeah, it wouldn't interfere with it. You would sleep fine. The issue would be the whole rest of your day after you got up, because melatonin lasts like 8 hours. So no.
What about the same for caffeine? Since you're sleeping more, would that interfere with going to sleep?
Not as long as you took the caffeine the literal second you got up, because the caffeine will wear off in 9 hours anyways. I mean, same thing with a normal day, right? You want to take the caffeine so far back that it's not interacting with your sleep. So as far as the weird dreams thing, no, you couldn't do the weird dreams thing with the 3 hours of sleep. But as far as it working, you can do caffeine and make it work, but you can't do melatonin to make it work.
Things to make OGS better, which is this is thrashing and it is perfect. Things to make that perfect framework is closing the loop.
I'm gonna restart this.
I'm quite figuring out what yet, but I'm close. The keyword to OGS adaptive. Things to make OGS better, which is this is thrashing and it is perfect. Things to make that perfect framework is closing the loop. In other words, the issue with old baptism was if I ever thought, the only time it wouldn't work was when I would not be able to realize what was thrashing and what wasn't thrashing. Because essentially what would happen is whenever I realized...
Mother, text me when it actually is ready. I have no interest in it is pretty much ready. Okay. Hello?
What?
Text me when it's actually ready.
Okay, it'll be like 2 minutes. Like the fish is done.
It'll
on the table,
it'll be
get the moisture off the rice.
it'll be like 4, and that's fine. But text me when you're actually sitting down to eat. You hear me?
Yeah.
I'm figuring out what... I'm figuring out what yet, but I'm close. The keyword to OGS adaptive. Things to make OGS better, which is this is thrashing and it is perfect. Things to make that perfect framework is closing the loop. In other words, the issue with old baptism was if I ever thought, the only time it wouldn't work was when I would not be able to realize what was thrashing and what wasn't thrashing. Because essentially what would happen is whenever I realized what was thrashing, there would be a thought of, but how do we know the thing thinking that it isn't thrashing isn't thrashing? That would be the issue on the days when we couldn't get it going. If we couldn't figure out what was thrashing, what wasn't thrashing, and we try and get to this place that we thought wasn't thrashing, that would be a whole ordeal because we were getting to it through thrashing, and it was just all this tomfoolery. And the cure that we found is the loop. The loop is the cure for that issue, because you can realize what is and isn't thrashing by realizing that the thing that thinks that it isn't thrashing is the thrashing. And that's the cure. That's the thing that breaks the cycle. So now I'm going back and I'm trying to turn OG after baptism into the perfect formula. And what I've got right now is a little something like, this is thrashing and it is perfect, and I am thrashing. And I am thrashing, which is that with close the loop. But that's generally what I've got right now. Surfing around the more simple formula. The goal is to find, right? The goal right now is we need a set of words that will work even when you're so going out of your gourd that you can't even remember what the thought vector associated with those things is. Even when you're so ass-blasted that you can't even remember what you used to experience with the thought when you're at that point, and you can still get there through a sentence, through a thought. You can develop a new thought vector from the ground up with a statement. That is in line with the old vector. That's the goal. So, sunset hours are my time to shine. Right when the sun is setting,
I really, really like that idea of Sub-Zero. That is like basically. I mean, that's really the same thing I say nowadays. What's up, mother? You know that's not what I meant. We're
putting it on plates.
If you were actually putting it on a plate, you would be up there right now.
Go in and put mine on a plate.
She literally didn't. She didn't even walk upstairs. What a retard. Okay. The idea of Sub-Zero as a challenge is exactly what I've expressed lately, as Sub-Zero as a increase and or decrease in coherence. In both situations, the more Sub-Zero you do, the less capable of enjoying your surroundings you are, and also especially with indica, but with both when they're taken to the farthest extent, you are less capable of running the same type of frameworks you normally would. So you should view them as an active challenge, and like with the more Sub-Zero, the more difficult it will be to run frameworks, but you are specifically doing that in order to hone your frameworks because you want your frameworks to be able to work in situations where your mind is not at peak performance. And I think that's a very good way to view Sub-Zero, and instead of trying to view Sub-Zero as like that thing which makes everything better, viewing it as like a thing which increases chaos, which is both interesting but then also potentially damaging, and you need to view that damage as a potential way to sharpen your ideas. That's fascinating.
The idea of condensing it down into just chaos like that makes a lot of sense.
This is weird. I never realized this before until today. It's caffeine and Adderall. Like, I knew I liked both of them together, but I didn't know they were necessary for me to like either one of them. I really don't like caffeine. If anything, maybe I like caffeine alone more than I like Adderall alone, which is fascinating because I thought Adderall was a miracle drug, and it is.
But wasn't there that time that you didn't have Adderall and you were doing just caffeine and you had liked it?
Yeah, I do remember that time vividly. But I mean, there was a reason, I'm sure, that I did Adderall after I got the caffeine. Like, my synopsis was never that caffeine was a replacement for Adderall. It was just that I was shocked at caffeine's ability to. You know what that was in retrospect? I just understood. Maybe. We'll have to go back and check the record. But I think what that was, if I had to guess, that is the fact that I had just done Sub 1. So I was probably, the caffeine was literally mixing with the Sub 1 Afterglow in a way that it felt exactly like Adderall. What I'm seeing right now is, and I've said this before, that caffeine increases my ability to speak, and Adderall decreases it. But Adderall increases my understanding of larger topics. Like, we had that whole discussion on a call before, and that is true, and that is like the thing I'm understanding again deeper now. But what I'm understanding now is also that it's something about the nature of caffeine. I have to think about it more. Anyways, dinner's getting cold, so I'm gonna go eat that. Actually, I'm gonna bring my plate back downstairs, so I should be back down in 5 minutes.
All right, sounds good.
Unless I get in a fight over spinach. We shall see. It's always interesting. This is too. I've always felt this.